Brokenness Meets Grace. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. As always, we're never alone. Today we are blessed to have two special guests in the house. So we got two today. So happy with that. I'm going to allow the guests to introduce themselves. Friends of ours from Alberton, a wonderful mom and son.
Yay! My name is Tanya, and I come from Alberton, but have just recently moved there. I come from Overcomers, which is a ministry in Paris. I've been there for 2 years. I actually had a 3-year covenant with God, and the Lord actually cut it short and brought me back to Joburg.
Hi there, my name is Caleb. I'm 24 years old. I come from Alberton. Also, 2 years in ministry at Overcomers, and also been brought back to Joburg to serve this side.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming along, guys. We really appreciate it. It's so nice to have more people take part in these conversations. And we're really, really excited for today's topic because it's a topic that we feel very strongly about because it's one that so many people can relate to. And that is broken homes. So broken homes from the perspective of children who grew up from a broken home and how it's impacted their lives. So that's today's topic. I think it's a great way to introduce or to add to the segment of brokenness because it's another form of brokenness, right? It speaks to a lot of people. I think majority of the people in this world can actually identify with that in one way or another. And for me, I think it's very important because the home is the foundation of education. That's where everybody gets their value systems. That's where everybody gets their identity. When we're born into a home, and that's the first point of education. That's what we're all exposed to in terms of who we become comes from that. And if our identity is rooted on a broken home, it really impacts us, as we grow. So it's a very, very important discussion to have around that. And I think I just want to direct the first question and just say, what's the actual definition of a broken home? What would you say defines a broken home in your understanding?
Definitely imbalance. An imbalance in roles, an imbalance in structure, an imbalance in foundation, an imbalance in morality, values, principles. So I think because God had an understanding when it came to family, when He created the first man and woman, He had a structure in mind where that's concerned. And that was His first institution, like you mentioned, of education. It wasn't pastors, it wasn't churches, it wasn't schools. It was a mother and a father, or a father and a mother. That was the first foundation of how homes and a structure should be built for children to be reared into the world. So I think brokenness really just comes from that imbalance in roles, and this is what we see a lot today. That men and women don't know their roles, and they don't play it in the way that is effective in our household, and that affects children, and that affects how children are reared, children are raised. And that identity is also latched onto them, and then they also grow up into rearing broken children, and it's just a cycle and a domino effect that plays out that way. So I think the root core is definitely in the fundamental roles of each gender, each person, each role, and when they come together, it forms a dynamic duo, it forms a dynamic team that works. It's like puzzle pieces coming together to form a whole, and those two pieces play a big role into making it a whole. One can't make it whole. They both need to come together and both need to play the part to make it perfect, to make it what it was made to be. Yeah, which is the opposite of broken.
Very true. Tanya, for you?
When I look at brokenness in our home, or what causes that brokenness, obviously it's going to be divorce or separation. But then I got thinking about it last night that it's not only that divorce or separation, but when there is abuse in the household, when there is abuse between spouses or abuse from parent to child,
that causes brokenness. Like Karabu was saying, when God created when God created Adam and Eve, it was meant to be a companionship, it was meant to be a partnership. And, today we get it so wrong. Everybody's so so busy with their own things, so busy with their own lives, that we kind of forget that there's a partnership going on. We kind of forget that there's a union going on. I've seen through this process, my last few years being married, I've realized that what we do as parents impacts these children. For me in my household, I worship a lot, I pray a lot. But I've noticed that if one partner is off, and that partner is worshiping, but your lifestyle is not speaking the same language, this confusion comes in when it comes to children. How do they relate to Jesus when the action is completely different from what you're doing? So to me, that is definitely a form of brokenness, where brokenness starts. That not understanding, but also not relating, or not taking the two, what I say and what I do. They're not in one, they're not in harmony with each other. And then we get this absolute brokenness in these children.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's such a valid point, because children are sponges, right?
Exactly.
They soak up so much, and from such an early age. I think you have more possibility of really changing a child's perspective from a young age than you do when they're older. So that's why that's a fundamental point in their life. Caleb, for you, what's the difference?
Well, absolutely. I have to agree with both of you on what you said. I think the biggest key role in this is fatherhood, actually. Because a man should be the kingsman of his household. And yes, it is unity between husband and wife, definitely. It is a team effort. You have to, how can I say, have that companionship. You have to grow together, build together, pray together. But as well as an absence of God in us, an absence of the fear of God. So in many households today, Christianity and all those things surrounding Christianity is a lack of fear of God. And that's one of, you can go into Christian households. They can proclaim that they're Christians. But you see the biggest thing is the lack of the fear of God. And the fear of God is not a bad fear, but it is a respect for God. A respect in your household that a husband should treat his wife with love. She's not his slave. She's not his dishwasher. It's a companionship. If you read in the Bible, in Genesis, Eve is Adam's helper. Not his dishwasher, not his slave. And I think a lot of the times, words, the power of words in a household as well. So you'll see the word of God says that your words and your tongue has the power to bring life or to kill. So words shared in a household as well between parents, in front of their kids, in front of the other family members. It's a lot of abuse over the years. And mental and emotional abuse is far more worse than any physical type of abuse. And just the soaking up of, like you said, sponges, children are sponges. They're going to grow up, and this is the way that they've been programmed. Your subconscious in the first 7 years of your life is the most important. You soak up the most information. So there's actually a specific name. I can't get into the scientific name for that now, but they actually have a word for it.
Google it.
We'll
Put it up on the video.
There's an actual scientific name for the first 7 years of a child's life. It's the subconscious side of their mind, and it's just open to everything. And that's when a child gets programmed at the most, how can I say, they absorb the most information and who they are and their identity in those first 7 years. And that's what's such a big key into introducing God early
Yeah.
on in their lives so that they can acknowledge the Messiah.
Yeah.
They can acknowledge and understand who Christ is.
Mm.
They won't understand it full,
Yeah.
but they will have a subconscious
Mm.
mind of, I know who God is. I know what it means to have God in our house. I think that's what a lot of people are lacking
Yeah.
and a broken home.
Yeah.
So yeah.
At the core of that, that's very, very true. And value systems, I think, yes, overarching is of course God, the fear of God, and all that. But even people who don't believe necessarily in God, we know as a society what's right and wrong.
Yes.
Like we have that idea of a value system that tells us this is right and this is wrong. And we know what's broken and what's whole. You know what I mean? So what you're saying is so, so true, because we know those things, because from a young age we were raised to understand that's wrong and this is right. This is what's expected and this is what's not expected. But it's so unfortunate because due to brokenness or broken families, those value systems start to change over time. We're exposed to things that now counter those values that were given to us or not given to us. From a young age, and then we start to develop identities that are deviate from what we should be, or from what value systems we should actually have. But like you all said, the core is family. The core is foundational. Like it's so important to have that foundation. And what happens when that foundation breaks is what impacts society as a whole over the years. That's what becomes broken people. That's where broken people come from. That's what, all of these mental and emotional side effects exist. We become a broken society, in reality. And I think the definition, I think we can all agree that the definition of that is that it was whole. It's not. And wholeness would symbolize a mom and a dad, together raising them, but also, most importantly, raising them in the prescripts of God.
Yes.
Raising them on a godly foundation.
Yes.
That's what wholeness means, and brokenness is obviously the opposite. And I think it's important, all of us have this in common, is that we all experience growing up in a broken home. So we can talk from this experientially. And I just wanted to find out from each of us, Tanya, you can go first, and we'll go next, and then Caleb, and we'll talk about it. But your experience with broken home, what is it, and how did it impact you, and who you are today?
Sure. Okay, so my parents got married at a very young age. My mom was 15 or 16, and she had my brother first, and then she had me. And they ended up getting divorced when I was about 2. So I wasn't in that position at that point in time to understand I was in a broken home. I was just growing up. But my biological father was always missing from my life. And my mom ended up marrying a wonderful man, an absolutely wonderful man who treated her like gold, who treated her the way her husband should treat her. And they're still together today, they're still happily married. But from a child's perspective, I didn't want this man around. I didn't want this man in my life. He was an authority figure as opposed to my own father, who was my hero. So I didn't appreciate him, and we kind of clashed. But I was one of 4 siblings, and there wasn't always that equal love or that equal attention. It always seemed like the attention I wanted was, I sought, always ended up to be negative attention, which then brings in that misunderstanding, misconception of like you're a naughty child, but in the meantime, I can't express myself, so I'm screaming, give me love, give me attention, give me what I need. I see you doing it in the other children in the house, but you're not doing it with me. And eventually that negative attention that I was receiving, I believed that, well, that's what life is like. That's what you've got to do. I was also sexually abused as a child. So, the scary part about that is that you think that is love. You think that it's okay to be promiscuous because it's going to give you attention, you know. So I won't say from a very young age, but I mean, you know, I was so interested in the boys, so interested in people much older than me. And this is where I want to go with this, because this is how much that brokenness as a child impacted my life. Was that when I eventually fell in love with the wrong person, who was 23 years older than me. It was Caleb's dad. He was really much older than I was, much wiser. You know, I was still a young child. But when I look back at it today, I wasn't looking for a lover. I was looking for a father. I deeply just needed somebody to love me as a father would. And from that very relationship, every single relationship I went to was just a no-go zone, you know. Until I met my husband in 2020, who I believed, you know, finally I've settled down, you know, I have this husband who's not perfect. I literally watched, you know, he's a broken man. He is so utterly broken that he broke our own household, you know. So I've just literally watched brokenness build on brokenness build on brokenness through the years. And I can't sit here today and say that I've taken every single thing that I've learned from brokenness and I've applied it to my life. And I have this solid foundation that I'm building these kids on. I'm not, you know, I'm not. I'm sitting in the very spot where my parents sat years ago, and I now have a broken one. Like I was saying, you know, you get to that point where you realize I am my parents right now. You know, I'm facing that same kind of pain. Although my mom did it at a much younger age, much older, much wiser, but you know, it still doesn't stop the pain. It still doesn't stop you feeling like a failure. You know, you've come from a broken home. You've made that promise to your children that you'll never do the same thing to them. But I mean, you know, you have these generational curses. You have these seeds that are sown from so young that we're so unaware that these seeds have been planted and these seeds have been watered through the years by pain and torment and tragedy and, you know, all kinds of trauma. We were just fueling it, instead of looking at it from a young age and saying, okay, I see what my parents did wrong. I see how they failed, and speaking that positivity through your life into your marriage or into your potential marriage one day. And you know, you immediately, I think when we go into marriage, we don't go into marriage saying on the first day, I believe this is going to fail. I believe I'm going to be such a bad wife. I believe that my husband's going to wake up every single day and make my life miserable. That's not how we go into marriage. We go into marriage being in love, trusting that person. You know, you kind of see yourself sitting on the outside on a swing together, growing old together. You know, that's how you picture it. But, you know, Satan has different plans. You know, what is the one thing he does? You know, John 10 verse 10, comes to steal, kill, and destroy. You know, and I just look at no matter the situation, no matter how hard I tried, you know, he's going to go after families. You know, he's going to destroy households. He's going to break down husbands and wives. And when there's an uneven yoke, you know, no matter how strong you are, no matter how much you're on your knees and how much you worship it, if there is that unequal yoke, it can't withstand that storm.
Ultimately, the children that come from that environment are the ones that bear through their life. And that's powerful because, like, I can definitely relate to that, you know, in the sense that I came from a broken home, and I, like you remember thinking, I never, you know, want to make my children experience that. You know, when I grow up, it's going to be different. When I grow up, I'm going to do what needs to be done to maintain and sustain a healthy marriage and be a good wife and be a good mother, so my children know what love looks like. Because when you come from a broken home, you think love doesn't look like that. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be. In our case, anyways, where there was a lot of abuse, you know for a fact that's not love. You know, it's not an abusive environment. It isn't a place where a father is non-existent. It doesn't have any role in their children's life. And I grew up just thinking, I promise when I'm older, this is not going to be me. And lo and behold, here I am, at 35, divorced. And like you, I think I did get married young. I got married when I was about 23, 24, and we tried our best, I think, given the circumstances, and wanting so badly to make things work. But like you said, it's always two broken people coming together, and we don't necessarily have the right tools, especially as two broken people coming from a broken environment. You're not equipped with the right tools to be able to actually help you withstand difficulties. And of course, I can only speak for myself in the sense that I over years of introspection, I realized that you're almost setting yourself up to fail because your foundation is so messed up, and you come into a relationship, like you said, looking for things that the other person is not necessarily supposed to be able to give you. We're looking for a father. Your partner, your husband came into a marriage not looking to be your father. They came into the marriage looking to be your partner, your lover, and perhaps they have needs that they needed you to fulfill that you're not even aware of, because it's needs that they had from a young age as well. But you set yourself up to fail because you bring your brokenness into a system that's already broken, expecting that the other party knows that you are broken, expecting that the other party knows that they should fulfill those needs in you. And when that party does not fulfill those needs, everything crumbles because your needs are not being met. But you set these unfair expectations for people to set because foundationally, you don't have them. Foundationally, they were never instilled in you. And for me, I think I expected, or rather I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be prioritized. I wanted to be made to feel like I was chosen. Because all I knew was the rejection that was sown in me from a young age. And when you go into a relationship expecting those things, you expect the impossible things. You want a person to bend over backwards to prove their affection to you at any cost. And that's a very, very unfair way to put on somebody. So I can definitely relate to that. It took me a long time to sort of look at it that way because you become a victim. Your own victim, everybody else is out to get you, this person failed me, that person failed me, they didn't get it, and I'm the one that, got the raw deal. But only when you realize that the only foundation that you can have is God. And if your relationship with Him is not aligned like it should be, you will always be looking for Him in other people. And they will never be able to fill that. And that for me is what brokenness is. That's what brokenness is at its core. Our inability to recognize that the real need we have in our souls is for something that is out of this world. And that's where, for me, my personal brokenness played out as a child, and how it impacted my life growing up. So, and you?
Well, yes, like I said, I agree with all of these on the table here. Look, when you have parents that are separated from a young age, it does definitely plant a seed in you. My dad trained me over the years, over and over, that marriage is a mistake. You should never do it. And only up until I gave my life to God, I married my wife. And we've been married for about 4 years, going on to 5 years now. We've been together for about 7. So, yes, it's a massive impact in a child's life, seeing, especially the way the parents talk to each other, and words that are passed on to each other. Like, I have a very good relationship with both my parents, I must say. But obviously seeing them separated over the years, I can't imagine them being together. And it sets a thing in your mind that, they've been separated for so long and you've got two different worlds. Because my mom's one type of person, my dad's another. So going and visiting my dad obviously has a whole different lifestyle to what my mom would be living. So there's different models, different rules, different roles. One parent teaches you this, the next parent teaches you that. And as a child, subconsciously, I think you're confused. Because now the father swears, mother doesn't. You know, I'm just using this for example. I'm not saying they did it. Mother drinks, dad doesn't. Dad sees other women, mom doesn't. You know, so as a child, you go from one household to another, and you see, okay, this is done there, this is done that, and that causes a very unequal yoke in a child's life already from a young age. It makes you question a lot of things, and the problem with that is such rebellion kicks into a child. So when they reach the teens, you know, teenage years, they start. That's when you see the real rebellion nature start coming out of the child. Is in their teen years, because now all that stuff is soaked in for so long, and now they're like, okay, well, mom does this, I can do it. Dad does this, I can do it. You know, dad sees different partners, mom sees different partners on a regular basis. Like I said, I'm not saying you guys, I'm just saying in general, in general, especially with the child having to see his father or his mother have different partners. Now you've got to bear in mind those partners that your parents are bringing in now are also coming in with their yokes and what they've been raised. So it's not only a root from your parents, it's roots from your parents' partners and their families' roots now that are now starting to, how can I say, influence you and intercept your household. So it's a lot of roots, and I think this is what a lot of people are not getting to these days when they go for counseling and when they go for problems. You know, like there's so many roots that people don't recognize. So many poisonous and dead roots that have been introduced and involved in your life as a child, and words, especially words that have been shared with that child over the years. So I know, like I said, my father and I, we have a very good relationship. We're not angry with each other. We do love each other quite a lot. He's a good dad. But my dad has been raised in a very different way than most people have. He's very rough. Like, in terms of his nature. He's one of those manly men. You know, he comes from the army. There's no emotion. I've never seen him cry before. He's that type of guy that will tell you, stop crying, you're not a woman, you know, hide your emotions, hide this. So he's been very harsh over the years with his words when it comes to fatherhood as well. Like I said, my dad and I have always had a good relationship, but he's never been taught as a child to deal with his emotions. So he's a very tough guy, like a hard shell. So emotions and that, I believe a father should also be able to teach a child how to love. And that's very important. It's not only the mother's role, but it is the father's role to love the mother in front of the children so that they can acknowledge and see what love is. And that father has to create, or not create, rather, but receive his love from God. So that is a very big point. Like, for example, at a young age I was diagnosed with ADHD and ADD. Yesterday I had a learning disability and tennis autism. So I was placed in special schools all my life. Remedial schools is what they call it. So mainstream schools are the normal government schools and the normal schools you go to. Remedial schools are like a special needs school for kids who have epilepsy, learning disabilities. They have a slower learning system. And so obviously being in these types of schools, my siblings and, you know, people in general would make fun of me. And now and then my dad would crack jokes about it as well. So it creates a massive impact in a person's life. Even a joke, even the smallest of words shared to a person. You don't realize it, but after time, you know, when it all piles up and it all adds up, it's like a magnet. You know, it's like you're a magnet and it all piles up on you after a while. Eventually you reach a breaking point where you're like, well, is it true? You know, is this how people see me? And people need to be really sensitive with their words, especially when it comes to a household, a family. It's supposed to be a place of safety. It's supposed to be a place of building you up. You need to know subconsciously and spiritually that that's my home. I go there for safety. I go there for learning. I go there to be loved. But unfortunately, in this day and age with households, it isn't that way. Some children now are actually fearing to go home because they get bullied at school or they have a difficult time at work. Come home and it's an empty household with parents that are fighting, words being shared, and it feels empty. It's brokenness. And look, everybody's going to have a form of brokenness in their lives. But the thing is, you need to, as your job, you need to acknowledge that brokenness. And you need to fix it. You can't share your brokenness with people all the time. Doesn't mean that you are broken, you have a right to break someone else. You need to conceal that, acknowledge that, and say, God, how can I fix it? How can you fix me, God? You know, immediately, like most times I would be dealing with, I've got 2 boys. One's 1 year old, the other one is 4. Now the 4-year-old one, Joshua, he's a real handful these days. Because he's just reached that point of, he just wants to touch everything, stay awake, talk a lot, run around the house, and I find myself many times doing what my dad would do to me. So I would have a temper outburst with him. Like I would just randomly shout at him. And as I'm shouting at him, I can see these words, it's like spiritual, like almost as if God opens my eyes in that moment. And I could see these arrows going out of my mouth and hitting him. And I could see how I'm busy damaging him, cracking him. And I would immediately stop, call him and say, I love you. I'd give him a hug, I'd comfort him. But many times I see with subconsciously, it's in your subconscious. It's not something that you intentionally do, it's a program in your mind. And it's like an auto start. As soon as a certain thing triggers that, in that moment, that's how you have been taught to react and deal with the situation. So many times I would do that to my child. I would shout at him and be harsh with my words. And immediately God will open my eyes and be like, you know what you've done wrong? You've given your child your brokenness. Now you need to fix it before it's too late. And I call him and give him that comfort and that love to reassure him. And yes, so I'm dealing with it as I go along. It's only 4 years now, it's been with me. Many more years I've prayed to God. But I'm going to do my best to, number one, teach my children what a household should be like. A God-fearing, loving environment. Not a place of rejection and to fear to come home. To fear to share things with your parents. To fear, just the household itself. It should be a place of comfort, love, and just your happy place. And so,
I love what you said about us projecting our brokenness onto people, because I think that's what everybody does. And that's why society is in the state that it's in, It's just because by virtue of the fall, by virtue of the fact that it broke in even, we all broke. Our walk with God is a broken, limping walk every day, because we need to constantly be able to go back to Him to get refueled and strengthened enough to move forward. But we should not be projecting our brokenness onto people or having the expectation that people should be the ones to fix what was broken within us. We always have to take it back to us. He's the only one that can.
Yes.
And for you, Carol, what was brokenness? Broken home.
I heard so much from Tanya and Caleb both that I just, resonated with me so much. It's quite interesting because I was never, or even till today, I can't tell you, because our broken home was abuse. Our father physically, emotionally, mentally, verbally abused our mother. And as a result, the marriage broke. And I wasn't witness to the physical abuse. I was so young. I really can't remember a moment or a point in my upbringing where I witnessed any form of abuse from him towards my mother, whether it was verbal, physical, any negative relation to them. And it's quite interesting because what you said about the age. A lot of people, especially when they have had a childhood trauma, they can almost certainly identify that they witnessed that, or they saw this, or they experienced that, and that was the trigger for whatever mental illness or whatever, trauma that followed them in life. But I really, really cannot tell you that that particular incident was a result of my brokenness.
Yes.
And I think it was more subconscious than anything. And because I soaked in whatever I soaked in, and my soaking was rejection. And it's what you spoke to, Tanya, that I was such a, I felt rejection so keenly that it played out in being a naughty child, being attention seeking, but I didn't want to be a bad person. I just kind of attracted it in a sense. So I just grew up, and my extreme was self-hate. So I would rather run away from the boys instead of going to them, because I hated myself so completely that I didn't even want to think of entertaining the idea of a relationship. For me, it was like that kind of fear because of the broken home, because of the way that I saw myself. I believed that I was basically useless and there was nothing good about me. I didn't need people to tell me that. I believed it with myself, and that was just my extreme. It was extreme self-hate, self-consciousness. So, and that was rooted in rejection, and it just played out like that in the way that I lived my life, and I regressed in a way. It's like my mind checked out. I found an escape in the best way that I would live, and it resulted in all sorts of things. But I can't pinpoint and say because of this is what happened, but I definitely felt rejection in words and deeds. What you were saying about people saying stuff and it becomes a magnet and it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows, because literally anyone could have said anything to me and I just took it as a negative remark.
Yes.
I took it as something horrible and it stuck. And then I started believing every single negative thing that was said to me, whether they meant it that way or not, but I received it that way. And I lived it out, and it became this thing that I'm worthless, I'm horrible, I'm this and that and that and that. And it got so bad, I didn't even want to be touched. Like, I hated being touched. Even like a pet, or like this, I was so conscious of someone's hand on me, any part of my body. Like, extremely conscious of it because I hated, any form of acknowledgement of who I was, because I really, really thought that I wasn't worth being loved, because rejection was such a key part of my upbringing from a young age. So it was, of course, like Caleb said, it was only in meeting Christ, and what Harmony said as well, that because we attach validation in people, we just running around in circles. And we're breaking ourselves even more in the process, because they're broken, you're broken, you cannot fix each other. That is the truth. And it's only in finding, or rather he found me, and I think that's why my relationship with him is just so, I'm obsessed with Jesus. I really am, because he has been the one I've been looking for all my life. I've been rejected so much that when he was like, I've never rejected you, I've always loved you, always. But you didn't see it that way because you were so consumed with self. And that relationship to me was such a life-changing moment, because for me it was like, somebody finally loves me. Somebody finally accepts me, in my flaws, in my quirks, in my, different makeup. He loves me for who I am, and I just dove straight into him. But it's also something that you said about how, because now I'm in a place where, as much as I hated the idea of being in a relationship, of being married, of having children, I thought I was too broken to even raise children. Because I can't raise a child. I'm a mess myself. What am I going to do with the child? And for the longest time, I spoke that into my life. My sister, that's all they would hear. I'm not getting married. I'm not having children. I don't want that. I don't want that. And I lived that out because I spoke it so often in my life. Like, for a good 20 odd years, that's just what I spoke. And now I'm at a place where I actually want to embrace the family. I want to do and live the way that I begin to live. I want to be a mother to a child and love them the way that I didn't feel that I was loved. But it doesn't work like that. It's not something that you just fix with the magic wand, because you've dented it so much for so long. It's a process. It takes time for God to correct it the way that it needs to, because you spend so long speaking negatively into it. the opposite needs to happen in the same period of time as well. You know, so I'm coming to understand that as much as I want a perfect home, as much as I want a perfect husband and children, there's still stuff that needs to be worked in inside of me. And God is preparing me, but in the same breath, He's allowing instances in my life to prepare me for that. Yeah. You know, my sister has 2 beautiful children, and I have found the Holy Spirit really has just made me a mother through them. You know, but I didn't notice that. It's only now that I see that, okay, hold on, this is like a test, a trial. You know, can I mother these children now before that He entrusts me with children of my own? You know, am I able to be the mother that I want to be for my own children? And you know, it starts with the things that He presents to you right now. Often we always think of these beautiful, you know, picket fence dreams, but we don't notice that right where you are, where you can start, you know, with what you want to do. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just start where you are and do it slowly. And I think as Christians as well, we put so much pressure on ourselves to be the ideal. Yeah. Because our Savior is perfect, right? He is the ideal. But we can never be Jesus, let's be honest, as much as we want to. And that is also an unfair advantage for us because we keep thinking the more we work, the more we strive, we're going to be that. You know, we're going to be the book picture perfect Christian, but we can't. Because we are living in a broken world by virtue of that, but also because we are in a broken vessel as well. You know, but our essence are what counts more than anything. You know, so even with what you were saying, Tanya, that it feels like, when is it enough? You know, when does it end? It's not meant to. And not in the way that we want to as well. If we are able to just get through the little steps day by day and find an accomplishment in everything, because there is. There's always like, okay, I did that right. I didn't do this right, but I did that right. That's okay. You know, and we pick it up and we start again. And God works in such beautiful ways because it's only in the journey that you look back and you're like, oh my goodness, this is who I am now. You know, it's in the tiny little steps, in the tiny little bits that He makes you the perfect vessel for who you are in that moment. Not who the world wants you to be, not even who we think we should be. You know, what religion dictates to us. So it's just, I didn't understand, or rather, I often ask myself, because I've known that I've always had rejection issues, but sitting here, like you were saying, the Spirit just revealed it to me. I can't actually pinpoint a moment in my life when I was like, that happened, and because of that, this is why I am the way that I am. You know, I just felt a sense of rejection, and it just played out in my life in that manner. And it resulted in a false identity, because now I saw myself as something that I was never meant to be.
And that's such a powerful and
Be broken, but it's in the hands of the potter. Bye guys.
Bye.
Catch you next week.